Part 75. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 741. Sapporo, Provisional Capital Building. Asada sat in the main seat and looked at the new cabinet members sitting in a circle. These days, Asada Kamichi has mainly done two things. One is to use the existing forces to deal with the Kyushu Maritime Self-Defense Force and temporarily stabilize his hands and feet. The second thing is to carry out a new round of reshuffle of the cabinet, promote the middle and lower level officers who are loyal to themselves, and completely ignore all the senior officers. Everyone. As soon as Asada spoke two words, the new cabinet members on both sides straightened up immediately. With Tianhuang's permission, our northern military government has become legitimate and legitimate. Those people on Kyushu Island are all rebellious officials and traitors. Asada Kamichi is in a very happy mood now, because he can finally understand the state of mind of the ancient Chinese cao who coerced the emperor to control the princes. This feeling is really great. Although he can only rule part of Hokkaido and Honshu now, this kind of power is really intoxicating. But there are also problems now. The northern military government is now facing a lack of resources and a sluggish economy. Originally, Hokkaido was a pretty good natural fishing ground, but it happened to be too close to the dam Sakhalin Island. Now the warships on Sakhalin Island have nothing else to do except expel the fishing boats from Hokkaido all day long. As a result, fishermen are now catching less and less, reaching the point where it is unsustainable. In addition, Sakhalin Island conducts sea blockades from time to time, and the number of transport ships coming from Daimao has gradually decreased. There are also those sons of bitches on Kyushu Island who, relying on their naval superiority, directly occupied most of the small sea areas and directly cut off the northern military government's maritime supply lines. Now our northern military government is facing a lot of pressure, especially in terms of economy. The southern side has not been affected at all, and trade has been going on. But we keep getting stuck again and again. Is there any good solution for you in this situation? The new cabinet members looked at each other in confusion. Most of these people were from the self-defense forces, and few of them knew anything about economics. It's okay to let them carry guns and kill people, let them think of strategies. Lord Asada, I feel that the situation in today's small life is very similar to that of China 100 years ago. There is an old saying in China that says that when fighting foreigners, you must first make peace at home. Rikawa thought for a moment and broke the silence. Asada frowned. Rishuan, what do you mean? It is an extremely unwise choice to start a conflict with Sakhalin now. It will undoubtedly be attacked from two sides, giving the southern government an opportunity to take advantage of. Furthermore, Sakhalin is not a soft persimmon. In the past, when we were unified, weren't we still unable to do anything to others? No, what I mean is, can we stabilize Sakhalin Island first? After we finish solving the southern government, we can then slowly start to figure it out. Rishuan looked at the expression on Asada's face and said carefully. A tangled look appeared on Asada's face, and the conflict between Xiaozai and Sakhalin was irreconcilable. Now he is unwilling to compromise with Sakhalin. Lord Asada, I don't want to compromise with Sakhalin, but now Sakhalin holds the lifeline of our north. If trade is not smooth, we will fall further and further behind the south. I'm afraid. Seeing Asada's hesitation, Rikawa quickly spoke. The small days have always relied on globalization to rise again. Now that it is blocked like this, I am afraid that it will not last long with the current domestic resources. Asada was not a mediocre person and knew the stakes involved, but he still did not want to bow to Li Cheng. Hikawa, what do you think of distant friendship and close attack? Since Sakhalin restricts us, why don't we show our favor to Emperor Pu? The beautiful country has obviously been on the sidelines, and Asada does not expect the beautiful country to help him. Now we can contact Daimao, and it is a good idea to make distant contacts and attack closely to counter-attack Sakhalin Island. As long as De Mao helps the northern government to restrict Sakhalin Island, the advantage of the south will be gone. When Rikawa heard what Asada Kamichi said, his heart skipped a beat. He never expected that Asada would find another way. It seems that Asada Kamichi has a deep resentment towards Sakhalin, and even if he cooperates with Emperor Fude, he does not want to compromise with Sakhalin. Rikawa frowned. He knew that he could no longer speak to Sakhalin, as it would be too easy to be suspected. This is not impossible, but it is said that Emperor Pu's relationship with Li Qing is also very good. What Rikawa said was true. In the eyes of outsiders, Emperor Pu's ability to sell Sakhalin to Li Qing represented the relationship between the two parties. Asada glanced at Rishuan, smiled mysteriously, and shook his head. Haha, Rishuan, you only know one thing but not the other. Do you think Li Xin has a good relationship with beautiful country? Or do you have a good relationship with De Mao? Rikawa smacked his lips. Beautiful country. Although I don't know what method Li Qing used to get Emperor Pu to agree, but I know what beautiful country thinks. The beautiful country wants to use Sakhalin as a nail on the eastern coast of the country. I have to say that Rikawa does have two skills, and he can actually discern the plans of the beautiful country. Of course, Li Qing himself knew this, which was one of the reasons why the beautiful country did not allow him to establish a country. After hearing Asada's own explanation, Rikawa stopped saying anything and had to wait for the next opportunity. Befriend far away and attack close by? The wisdom of the ancient Chinese people is really amazing, haha. Asada Kamichi looked around, and Hinakawa gave him a direction, but he found the best method from it. Regardless of whether Emperor Pu agrees or not, he must give it a try. If it succeeds, the northern government can truly trap the dragon and ascend to heaven. I will send someone to De Mao for this matter. Okay, let's break up the meeting. Asada waved his hand, and other cabinet members bowed and left one after another. After Rishuan got into the car, the expression on his face became solemn. He wanted to pass the news to the headquarters as soon as possible. If Asada is allowed to facilitate this matter, it will be very detrimental to Sakhalin Island. Now the northern government is besieged, and then Sakhalin will be besieged by Mao and the northern government. Tisk tisk, don't underestimate Asada Kamichi's wisdom. Rikawa shook his head regretfully, and this time he admitted that he had indeed underestimated Asada Kamichi. Not long after, Li Qing on Sakhalin received the news. Brother, news about the sparrow. Li Qing took the note from Zhang Dongzhou and read it carefully. The expression on his face became more and more solemn, and he snorted coldly, Humph, Asada is so smart. Then he slowly closed his eyes. Zhang Dongzhou stood behind his eldest brother, not daring to make a sound. He knew that his eldest brother was thinking, so he must not disturb him. It wasn't until Li Qing opened his eyes that Zhiokai Zhang Dong whispered, Brother, do you want to find someone? Zhang Dongsu made a gesture of cutting his throat. Li Qing shook his head, no, this will expose the sparrow. In his heart, the sparrow is much more important than this matter. If this matter is exposed, the gain will outweigh the loss. Emperor Pu, will you really agree? Zhang Dongzhou asked hesitantly. An inexplicable look flashed in Li Qing's eyes. Politicians have no bottom line. The interests of the country are their most unbreakable bottom line. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Bulletin Liang. Chapter 742. Big Hair, Moscow, Kremlin. Emperor Pu is in a good mood recently, and everything is developing according to the plan he and the think tank planned. Not only the victory in Kurs Himagiti, but also the backhand left in Sakhalin Island had a miraculous effect. Although there are some deviations from his plan, these are harmless. The think tank's prediction is that there will be a dispute between Sakhalin and Zaire, with Zaire suppressing the development of Sakhalin. He wants to bring chaos to the entire East Asia region. This will attract international attention and he will take advantage of the opportunity. What he didn't expect was that Sakhalin actually suppressed Zaire, and Zaire split into two parts. But this is not important. What is important is that East Asia is in chaos as he wished. Emperor Pu finished signing the last document, put down his pen in a happy mood, and stretched his body. This morning's work was almost completed. The secretary saw Emperor Pu standing up and immediately stepped forward. "President, the ambassador to Mao has been waiting outside all morning. Do you want to receive him?" "Oh," Emperor Pu put down his hand that was doing stretching exercises and frowned. "Which side?" Now the whole little life is divided into two sides, and he doesn't know which side this ambassador represents. Northern military junta. Emperor Pu thought for a moment and smiled. "Let him in." After a while, the little ambassador with the mustache walked in quickly. "Hi Emperor." "Hello, I'm Saburo Yoshino." Saburo Yoshino bowed somewhat uneasily. After receiving the order from Asada Kamichi this time, he actually didn't feel confident at all. This time he came mainly for testing. After all, he had always been on the side of the beautiful country in his childhood. Now I suddenly show my kindness to Daimao. I wonder if Emperor Pu will accept it? If not, then... Well, hello. Emperor Pu interrupted his random thoughts by saying hello. Emperor Pu looked at his watch and said, "I don't have much time. If you have anything to say, you can just tell me." Saburo Yano originally wanted to start slowly with Emperor Pu, but after hearing what the other party said, he did not dare to delay. "Your Excellency, there is a saying that there is no room for others to sleep soundly on the couch. You are also aware of the recent news about Sakhalin Island. Sakhalin Island is becoming more and more powerful now. If Daimao is not taken care of, he may become a tiger breeder." Saburo Yoshino looked at Emperor Pu carefully. Emperor Pu didn't say anything but looked up at him. He had just guessed the reason why the young ambassador saw him at this time. He is also paying close attention to the situation between Sakhalin Island and Zaire Island. He has long seen that the biggest threat to the northern military government of Zaire Island is not the south, but Liqing's Sakhalin Island. Of course he was also aware of Saburo's obvious plan to sow discord. "Well, Sakhalin is now a private island, which doesn't seem to have much to do with us. After all, we have our own outlet to the sea, and the navy on Sakhalin does not pose a threat to us. So why should I struggle with Sakhalin?" Emperor Pu spread his hands and said it didn't matter. It was just a private island, not a country. "Really?" Sanlang Yoshino murmured in his heart that there was a high possibility that Emperor Pu would not care about the predictions he had made before coming. However, the more he showed no concern, it meant that Emperor Pu had already made plans to suppress Sakhalin Island, but this plan did not seem to take a long time. "Haha, Mr. President, whose private island has 4 little treasures? Does the Luochuo family have it? Are there so many in the northern dynasties? The Cuban crisis is a lesson learned from the past. Don't forget, Liqing really dares to use nuclear weapons." Saburo Yao said softly. The corner of Emperor Pu's mouth twitched imperceptibly. He had long known about the 4 big treasures on Sakhalin Island. Not only does he know it, but the beautiful country also knows it very well, and even the 5 permanent members know about it. But every country pretended not to know and chose to turn a blind eye to this matter. Zaire even raised objections at the United Nations General Assembly, arguing that nuclear weapons should not be in the hands of private armed forces. It's a pity that it's of no use, and the Vuchane government doesn't care about them at all. Now the prostitute Saburo brought this matter up to discuss Daimao, which made Emperor Pu feel a little unhappy. To be honest, his ideas are different from those of China and the United States, and he does not want a nuclear bomb on Sakhalin Island. After all, This matter has little to do with China and the beautiful country, but after all, Sakhalin Island is underground, which is more or less unpleasant. Especially since he also heard that Sakhalin had the intention to establish a nation, he was not sure that he could become a permanent ally with Li Cheng. After all, Li Cheng's two allies are much more reliable than De Mao. Even if he makes small moves in private, it is impossible to cooperate with Zyrili. With Li Cheng's shrewdness, if he cooperates with Zyrili, he will definitely find out the clues. Now, is not the best time to fall out with Li Cheng. Haha, it's just a few gadgets, not a three-phase bomb. What's more, Sakhalin has no ability to manufacture nuclear weapons. Compared with Sakhalin, it seems that the threat in your childhood is greater. Emperor Pu looked at Nozaburo with a half-smile. After hearing this, Saburoye was so embarrassed that he was able to dig out 2 rooms and 1 living room. All the high-level officials in the world knew that Zairi had blown himself up because of the 3-phase bomb. Internationally, the 3-phase bomb has been used to make fun of our little life. Since Your Excellency the President has no intention, forget it. I will come to visit you next time. Piao Saburo had never expected that his provocation would succeed at once, and this time he came just to test Putin's tone. It seems that Putin has no plan to deal with Sakhalin for the time being, but who can say for sure about this matter? There are no eternal allies in this world, only eternal interests. Isn't it the same with the United States and Zairizi? They used to be in love, but now they are in a relationship. Putin smiled and nodded, and asked someone to send Piao Saburo away. As he watched Piao Saburo slowly walk out of the office, Putin gradually restrained the smile on his face. De Mao and Li Cheng are not allies, but just a simple exchange of interests, and he secretly tripped him up, which Li Cheng himself may know. Zairizi came to him now, nothing more than being suppressed by Sakhalin and the southern government at the same time, and came to him to form an alliance, hoping to put some pressure on Sakhalin. Putin turned and looked at the huge map hanging on the wall, and glanced at the location of Sakhalin and Hokkaido. Li Cheng. Kamichi Asada. He was weighing the interests. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 743. Just as Putin was looking at the map and thinking, members of the New World of Mao pretending to be tourists outside the Kremlin were paying close attention to the situation at the door. When he saw the black Mercedes-Benz car that Ambassador Xiaorizai was riding in coming out of the Kremlin, his eyes lit up and he immediately picked up the camera and pretended to take pictures of the scenery, and took a picture of the license plate number. Li Cheng knew that Xiaorizai would definitely not be honest, and had arranged for people to wait here several days in advance. This time he just caught a person red-handed. Of course, this doesn't mean anything, after all, it's not uncommon for an ambassador of a country to meet with the president. Li Cheng just fought back, regardless of whether there was a date or not, and asked someone to send it to the United States Fabulogo in the form of an anonymous letter. He believed that with the ability of the United States Fabulogo, it would not be difficult to discover the secret. Anyway, the United States is very suspicious, and Xiaorizai has not been obedient in the past few years, so the United States cannot help but suspect. Li Cheng didn't pay attention to it after doing this, because he had more important things to do. Mao Xianmin was about to give birth. Although Mao Xianmin followed the doctor's instructions to exercise properly during pregnancy, the fetus was still too heavy, just like Li Cheng's eldest son Li Chenjai. This morning, Mao Xianmin had spotting, and Li Cheng rushed her to the hospital. Mr. Li, the fetus is not in the right position, and the fetus is a little big. I suggest a direct cesarean section. The expert obstetrician and gynecologist invited by Li Qing from the China Union Medical College held up his gold-rimmed glasses. Without waiting for Li Qing to speak, Mao Xianmin, who was lying on the bed, stood up with her hands on her belly. "Brother Qing, I still want to give birth naturally. I heard that natural birth is good for the child." Li Qing hurriedly stepped forward to comfort Mao Xianmin. "Don't worry, whether it's a natural birth or a cesarean section, do it as safely as possible." He didn't want his woman to be in danger because of childbirth. Giving birth is like going through the gates of hell for women. Although medicine is advanced now, if there is amniotic fluid embolism, even gods may come and it will be difficult to save. "Come with me." Li Qing motioned for the doctor to come out and speak. "I ask you, which one is more dangerous, natural birth or cesarean section?" Li Qing looked at the doctor with burning eyes. "To be honest, cesarean section is safer, at least there is no risk of amniotic fluid embolism," the doctor said quickly. Since he received the notice to rush to Sakhalin Island, he knew that if the mother and child were safe, he would have a bright future. If there was any mistake between the mother and the child, then his future would be bleak, and he would probably have to work in a poor government office until retirement for the rest of his life. One thought to heaven, one thought to hell. But he still resolutely took on the task. After all, how many people wanted to get close to Mr. Li Qing, but they didn't have the opportunity yet. So his current idea was to do it as safely as possible, and cesarean section was the safest method. Li Qing nodded. "Then I'll have a cesarean section, please, doctor." "Mr. Li, don't worry. Your wife and the child will not have any problems." The doctor breathed a sigh of relief and patted his chest. He was really a little afraid that Mr. Li Qing would agree to his wife's request and have a natural birth, and he dared not guarantee 100% safety. Because it was a cesarean section, it took a day to do the necessary preoperative examinations. The next morning, Mao Xianmin was pushed into the operating room. Li Qing sat on a bench outside the operating room. Zhang Dongxiu and Crow were waiting anxiously beside them, and even Zhang Qiandan rushed over from the north of Sakhalin Island. "Hey, can you two sit down? Why are you always hanging around in front of Big Brother?" Zhang Qiandan looked at the two people who looked around from time to time uncomfortably. He really cursed in his heart, these two idiots, pretending to care more than Big Brother, obviously want to win favor. "Hey, Zhang Qiandan, do you have a conscience when you say this? Your watch, mobile phone, which one is not given to you by big sister-in-law?" Crow pointed angrily at Zhang Qiandan's watch when he heard that Zhang Qiandan wanted to disturb his performance. Zhang Dongxiu next to him also said in a faint tone, "That is, Zhang Qiandan, I tell you, people should not be too ungrateful." Zhang Qiandan. Good guy, this can be linked to ungratefulness. Just when he was considering whether to stand up, Li Qing suddenly spoke, "Okay, sit down. You are all supervisors, why are you still so impatient?" The three of them looked at each other and sat down on the bench obediently without saying anything. An hour later, the lights in the operating room flickered and the door opened. With a whoosh sound, Li Qing suddenly stood in front of the door, startling the three of them. They didn't see how the eldest brother got to the door of the operating room. The little nurse at the door also felt her eyes blurred, and a tall figure appeared in front of her. "What's the situation inside?" he asked immediately without waiting for the nurse to speak. The nurse barely suppressed her mood. "Congratulations, Mr. Li, mother and child are safe." "Good." Li Qing smiled at this time. The three people behind also cheered. The more offspring the eldest brother had, the happier they were, not only because there was someone to inherit the new world. The current new world is very large, and the eldest brother once told them that the eldest son Li Qingjai would definitely develop in China. This means that most of the overseas industries must be inherited by the second son, so the birth of the second son is also very important to them. At this time, the doctor also came out of the operating room. Seeing Dr. Li Qing, He hurriedly took a few steps and took off his mask. Mr. Li, fortunately, you have fulfilled your mission. Mother and child are safe, and the fetus is 9.6 Jin. Li Qing smiled and nodded, thank you for your hard work. The doctor's face was filled with an excited smile. This thank you for your hard work was more important than giving him a red envelope of 1 million yuan. It represented a favor from Mr. Li Qing. It should be. Now my wife and child have been transferred to the ward. Li Qing nodded and immediately walked towards the direction of the ward. In the luxurious presidential ward, there were several nurses who served Mao Xianmin. Li Qing stood in front of Mao Xianmin's bed, bent down and kissed Mao Xianmin's cheek carefully. The little face was a little pale and a little cold. Mao Xianmin's anesthetic effect had not yet worn off, her eyes were closed, and her consciousness was still a little fuzzy. Xianmin, you have worked hard, Li Qing whispered beside Mao Xianmin's ear. Mao Xianmin nodded slightly consciously, and Li Qing smiled and looked at the fat boy next to him. It is said that this boy howled a few times when he was born, but now he is sleeping with his eyes closed. However, from the appearance, the ears and nose are more like Li Qing, and other places are more like Mao Xianmin. However, he is much heavier than his brother Li Chenjai. Zhang Qiandan, Zhang Dongxiu and Crow looked at Li Chengzhou from a distance with smiles on their faces. What were they discussing? What are you three doing secretly? Li Qing glared at the three of them. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 744. No, no, we are discussing what gift to give to our nephew, Crow said with a smile. Yes, yes, the other two also agreed with a smile. Gift? What are you trying to do? Li Qing rolled his eyes. These guys have criminal records. On Li Chenjai's birthday some time ago, they actually gave Li Chenjai several collectible pistols. You know how old Li Chenjai is? Because of this incident, Gang Sheng complained to Li Qing on the phone several times. These guys are really unreliable. Brother, how can you say that? It will hurt our sincere hearts, Crow said aggrievedly. Besides, boys, don't they all like to wield swords and guns? They should be trained to be familiar with weapons from an early age. You see, we never give Xiao Yuexi messy things. Don't talk, isn't the copy 380 in Li Yuexi's hand a gift? Li Qing got even angrier when he heard it. Li Yuexi once accidentally brought a gun to school. Although there was no bullet, it still scared the students and teachers. Girls, you must learn to protect yourself. Crow also felt guilty and spoke in a lower and lower voice. Okay, you all go out. Don't disturb your sister-in-law's rest. Li Qing drove all three out, and stayed to accompany Mao Xianmin and the child. Beautiful country, Gotham Faberla branch entrance. Hey, there is a letter in the mailbox. A Faberla yawned and passed by the mailbox and glanced at the mailbox. There are few letters in the mailbox. Now that we have entered the internet age, people in beautiful country are generally accustomed to using emails and have long abandoned old-fashioned handwritten letters. After all, online reporting is more convenient and faster. Faberla took out the envelope. It only said that it was mailed to Faberla, but did not say who signed for it. He casually opened the envelope, and several photos inside fell out. Faberla bent down to pick it up and frowned at the photos. There was only one car in the photo, but the background behind the car was clear to this Faberla, that was the Kremlin of the Great Russia. WTF? Faberla walked into the branch quickly with the photo. It didn't take long to check the information on the photo, and even the vehicle in the photo was investigated clearly because of the license plate number. It seems normal for Ambassador Zirizi to meet with President de Mao, right? Is it necessary to investigate such a thing? Normal? If it was really normal, then these photos would not appear in Faberla. Start the people inside and check it carefully. I think there must be a secret that cannot be told. Zyrizi has been very disobedient recently. Well, that's true. Especially the northern military government, which has a lot of resentment towards our United States. Faberla was also talking about the photo, but most people tended to investigate in depth. Maybe there was some important information in it. The entire United States intelligence agency began to operate. However, Sakhalin Island welcomed several distinguished guests at this time. "Hello, Mr. Zhang." Li Qing looked at the beautiful woman in front of him and greeted her with a smile. Zhang Luo didn't know what to say when she saw her lifesaver. She just pulled her husband to bow to Li Qing to express her gratitude. She had already prepared to commit suicide. It was only after her friend reminded her that she sent the letter with the mentality of giving it a try. Unexpectedly, the president of New World Group actually received it and saved their whole family. "Mr. Li, I really don't know what to say. Thank you for saving me." Zhang Luo's eyes were filled with tears. She had been treated too coldly because of the book in recent years. She also understood what it meant to kick someone when he was down and the world was cold. This life-saving grace is equivalent to rebirth. She was filled with infinite gratitude to Li Qing. "Mr. Zhang, you're too polite. I'm originally from Hong Kong, China. We all know everything you've done. I believe more and more people will know it in the future. If we have to say thank you, it's us who thank you." Li Qing smiled and waved his hand, so that Zhang Luo wouldn't be too polite. Then Zhang Luo introduced her husband Ryan. Li Qing was very interested in Ryan's identity. After learning that Ryan participated in the design of the Facebook in the United States, he directly asked him to join the New World Network Section project team. This was also a disguised solution to the life and work problems of Zhang Luo's family. After all, with Zhang Luo's personality, he would not accept Li Qing's extra gifts. After having someone send Zhang Luo's family to the apartment that had been prepared for them, Li Qing did not deliberately disturb them. After all, the journey was very tiring. "Hey, Isabella. Are you not going to leave this time?" Li Qing smiled at the two people, Crow and Isabella, who were in love with each other. "Yes, boss, I plan to live with Crow for a long time. I want to have a baby with Crow," Isabella answered in poor Chinese. It can be seen that she has been working hard to learn Chinese during this period. Crow's face twitched when he heard Isabella's words. He had not even considered the matter of children. He felt that he was still young and could still play for 2 years, and he didn't want a little brat to tie him down. Crow looked at his elder brother for help. Li Qing raised his eyebrows and gave Isabella a thumbs up. "Okay, keep going, I believe you will get it soon." Big. Crow looked at his elder brother with a sad face. Zhang Dongzhou smiled meanly and slapped Crow on the head. "What's so big? Is it big like your palm?" Crow covered his head and looked at Zhang Dongzhou angrily. Li Qing glanced at Zhang Dongzhou calmly. "Is it funny? Let the young lawyer come tomorrow. He is a big man, but he can't even give birth to a child. Isn't it embarrassing?" After saying that, he walked away without waiting for Zhang Dongzhou to respond. Zhang Dongzhou looked at his eldest brother's back, opened his mouth, and looked like he wanted to say something but stopped, which made Crow and Isabella beside him burst into laughter. "Big brother told you to have a baby too. You still want to be a dink? Go eat your ass." Crow pointed at Zhang Dongzhou and laughed. Zhang Dongzhou glared at the two of them depressedly. He didn't expect that the fire would burn on his head. Well, he should listen to his eldest brother and call the young lawyer to Sakhalin Island. In fact, Li Qing's meaning is very clear. The age of his subordinates is here. Although they are in their prime, they also have to consider the future. He doesn't want the new world to be in a state of lack of successors. After all, these are his loyal younger brothers. The second generation will surely be 100% loyal after training. After all, There are many such examples in the world. He doesn't want the new world to die in the second generation, so he has to consider the second generation from now on. With such a big business, it may not be possible to rely on his two sons alone. After all, they don't have a system. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 745. Time goes by and months pass. A large amount of poisonous rice was resold in the New World and began to slowly make its way onto the dining tables of ordinary people. These reprocessed poisonous rice are gradually becoming popular among people in the daily life, and they even think the taste is better than ordinary rice. But people who ate the poisonous rice began to have physical abnormalities. Ijima is a soldier of the northern military government. Although his allowance is generous, his family has a large population. His subsidy alone is not enough to support the family's expenses, so his wife often buys rice from the black market. In the evening, the whole family sat around on the tatami to eat. I don't know why, but the atmosphere was very solemn. The only sounds that could be heard were the clinking of bowls and chopsticks and the chewing of food. After a long while, Ijima put down his bowls and chopsticks, sighed and walked out of the room. Looking at the bright moonlight in the sky, he took out a cigarette from his pocket and lit it. The wife also noticed something, greeted the children to eat, and followed them out. "What's wrong?" His wife sat next to Ijima and asked in a low voice. "The military physical examination revealed that I have lymphatic problems," Ijima said, pretending to be relaxed. In fact, many people in the army have found problems, some with lymph nodes, some with thyroid glands. It is extremely unusual for such large-scale problems to occur, and now the self-defense forces have begun investigating. When his wife heard this, she quickly grabbed Ijima's hand and said, "What? Are you sick?" Ijima looked back at the children and demented old father who were eating, and said with a sad smile, "Maybe it's retribution. The old man killed too many Chinese people in Jinling, China. That's why we suffered this retribution." The wife's face turned pale. She already knew that her husband's illness was probably not a good thing. "You mean?" the wife asked fearfully. Ijima took a deep breath from the cigarette and exhaled a long column of smoke. "Well, it's a terminal illness. It is speculated that it is most likely affected by nuclear radiation, or there may be other reasons. For example, nuclear contaminated seafood in the surrounding seas, etc." The wife turned her head in horror and looked at the various foods on the table. Now she felt cold all over. If it is really the cause of food, I am afraid that other people may have problems in their bodies. "Ijima, what should we do?" His wife held Ijima's hand and couldn't help trembling. Meals that seemed delicious before are now unavoidable. Ijima gently patted his wife's hand and comforted her. "If you persist for a while, the government will not ignore it." Ijima looked up at Morishiro's moonlight. In fact, he didn't know whether the government would take action. "In my childhood, there were many families like Ijima in the north, especially the frail elderly who were more susceptible to toxins." The news began to spread, and the whole little day was plunged into panic. Northern Military Government, Provisional Parliament Building. Asada Kamichi frowned and looked at the inspection report from the Self-Defense Forces. "What? You mean that 5% of the people in the army have problems with their physical examination reports?" "Your Excellency Prime Minister, this is only for the Self-Defense Forces. I'm afraid the whole little day will be." The words were not spoken, but everyone knew what was going to happen next. Asada Kamichi let out a long sigh and closed his eyes. "Is God going to destroy my little life?" There was silence in the room, no one dared to speak. "Ahem, Your Excellency, Prime Minister, after our observations over the past few days, we have found that the waters around Hokkaido have not actually received nuclear radiation." Asada Kamichi immediately raised his head. "What did you say? What on earth is going on?" We initially suspect that someone deliberately poisoned the rice. We found strong carcinogens such as Aspergillus aflatoxin in the rice imported from Bangsa. There are so many people suffering from terminal illnesses, and this is a big reason. The researcher said categorically. Asadakam's face turned livid for a moment. He didn't expect that even the little Bangsa kingdom would dare to add insult to injury. Do you really think that I was in trouble with guns during my childhood? Stop importing grain from Bangsa country immediately, Asadakam ordered. Your Excellency, Prime Minister, you can't. Now Sakhalin has blocked the transportation route of Daimao, and China won't sell us food at all. Under the pressure of Li Qing, the Southeast Asian countries have no intention of making good friends with us. In addition to importing food from Bangsa countries, we basically cannot obtain food from neighboring countries. Kawashima stood up with a loud sound, pretending to be anxious. If formal channels don't work, just find a way. It's not like there are smuggling routes. Before Asada finished speaking, he realized that the smuggling route was completely impossible. The entire smuggling business in East and Southeast Asia was intricately related to the New World. If smuggling is really used, it will most likely be intercepted by the New World. Damn it! Asada Kamichi took a deep breath, and after calming down, he realized how similar his current life was to that of China in previous years. There are simply enemies on all sides. Asada couldn't help but feel sad that the country that was once the most economically developed country in East Asia ended up like this. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a condemnation of the Bangsa country and reduced the import of food from the Bangsa country. Mata paused and continued, ask for help from the immigrants who lived in the coffee country and open up a food import route from the Pacific. As the Prime Minister of the Northern Military Government, Kamichi Asada certainly knew that life in coffee country was not easy for immigrants. Since Xiao Arai's infiltration plan was leaked, coffee country also obtained Xiao Arai's detailed infiltration and country-changing plan from Li Qing. Immigrants who lived in the coffee country have been completely reduced to second-class citizens. However, the coffee country is still in the process of fattening, and there is no operation on these people for the time being. I believe that after the immigrants in the early days have acquired a lot of wealth, the powerful people in the coffee country will once again start a new round of massacre and plunder. But there is nothing they can do now. After all, except for overseas Japanese compatriots, they can't get any help from the surrounding areas. In fact, Sparrow Kawashima knows best about the situation faced by the small-time government. The big boss works step by step, calculating his little life step by step. From the destruction of Xiaoli's infiltration plan, the leakage of three-phase bomb research, the massacre of Xiaoli immigrants, the capture of Sakhalin Island to suppress Xiaoli, the virus incident, the secret efforts to split Xiaoli, the blockade of Xiaoli sea areas, and the cutting off of Xiaoli's food import routes, poisonous rice. One link after another, like boiling a frog in warm water, the national power of Xiaoli gradually weakened, and the economy of Xiaoli regressed for 10 years without a single victory. It is estimated that even if the immigrants of Little Life in Coffee Country can collect the food for support, the big boss will intercept it and really push Little Life to a dead end. I'll leave this matter of Kawashima to you, I don't worry about others. After hearing this, Kawashima cursed in his heart. This thief always entrusted important matters to him. Kawashima himself was afraid of spreading too much news and exposing himself. But there is no way, I have to answer it now, otherwise it will be more likely to arouse suspicion. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 746. In fact, the Kyushu government in the south is not so comfortable, although it has the initiative in the navy. But on land, the northern government still puts a lot of pressure on them. In particular, the northern military government bypassed the nuclear radiation area and redeployed troops on Honshu Island, which made the Yasuda family feel great pressure. Coupled with the constant invasion of some extra pirates in Southeast Asia, the fishermen in the south are miserable, and it is a bit like a broken drum and a rotten man. Of course, there is no lack of the instruction of the New World. Li Qing did not order the killing of the pirates such as Vaudi and Hai Mang. After all, the plan cannot keep up with the changes, so these pirates were directly left back to Java to continue harassing the fishing boats. The most important thing is that the poisonous rice plan is also being implemented in the south, and many people have already shown symptoms. Like Ma Tian, Yasuda Shunichi naturally found out that it was the problem of those imported grains, and the fire was also scratching. However, unlike Ma Tian Kamiyaki's begging, Yasuda Shunichi thought of buying from Asan. Because the entire East Asian region has no other options, only India, which claims to be a world power, dares to sneakily test the bottom line of the New World. On the sea at night, the deep black shrouds everything, and long-term observation makes people feel extremely palpitating. The Charles II transport ship, which departed from India's Mumbai port, took advantage of the night to sneak into the South China Sea with a cargo ship full of food. They have been sailing on the high seas for 2 days. In order not to be discovered, they brought enough supplies and basically did not dock. If you want to reach the Zaire Sea as quickly as possible, as long as you enter the Zaire Sea, the Navy will naturally escort them to the Kyushu commercial port. However, the most dangerous section of the sea route is between the Alba Islands and the Nansha Sea. The pirates on this sea route are rampant, especially for ships traveling to and from the Zaire Sea, which basically cannot escape the robbery of these pirates. The southern government of Zaire has long sent a warning to India. Boss, do we really have to raise the Chinese flag? The first mate, with a mouthful of curry, curled his lips and fiddled with the red flag in his hand casually. The captain glanced at him, snatched the red flag and wiped his mouth. What? Do you have a better way? Didn't Ziazi say that only ships from China and the autonomous province of Java will not be robbed on this sea route? In fact, the captain didn't want to take this job at first, but the Indian government gave too much. If this job can be completed smoothly, he can retire 5 years earlier. No, I mean that we, the world's big Indians, don't have any face in East Asia? These damn pirates, don't they look at people's dishes? The first mate still looked unconvinced. What hasn't he seen in these years? He also fought against the world's notorious Somali pirates. He didn't believe that a small Java Islands pirate could do anything to them. It's better to be careful. Stop talking nonsense and hang it up. The captain stuffed the red flag into the first mate's hand. He didn't want to take any risks. Since he could pass smoothly by hanging a national flag, why didn't he hang it? The first mate looked at the red flag in his hand with disgust, and changed the Indian flag with rough hands and feet, intending to hang the red flag up. Swish, the red flag hung on the wire for a while, and a small hole appeared. The first mate glanced at it casually, and didn't care and raised the flag directly. Hai Mang and his group of pirates were patrolling the sea route. They received news from the spies in Singapore that an Indian ship seemed to take the sea route to Zaire. So they waited here early. Since helping the New World last time, this group of Java pirates have tasted the sweetness. Especially, Vaudi and Hai Mang, uncle and nephew, really didn't take a cut from it, and won the respect of all pirates. Many people came to join them, which made this pirate force more powerful. Especially the hostile relationship between the New World and Zaire, which made these pirates attack Zaire without hesitation. Once, the Zaire warship chased directly to the waters of the Alba Islands, and was directly scared off by the autonomous province navy. Since then, these pirates have become more unscrupulous in robbing Zaire. As long as it is not the flag of a neighboring country, it will be intercepted. How much protection fee will be taken depends on where the other party is going. If it is a merchant ship going to Zaire, not only protection fees must be paid, but also robbed. Brother Hai Mang, it's coming. Hearing the voice, Hai Mang quickly turned around and picked up the telescope on his chest to look at the lights in the distance. Seeing the red flag fluttering in the wind, he muttered in confusion, "Huh? Why is it the Chinese flag? It seems that there is only this merchant ship today." What he got from the spy was the merchant ship of Asin heading to Zaire, but this one was obviously flying a red flag. Huh? Hai Mang saw through the telescope that there was a hole in the red flag on the mast, as if it was torn by something. He knew that the Chinese people valued the national flag very much, so why would they hang a tattered national flag? "Brother Hai Mang, what should we do?" the subordinate asked cautiously. In the past, such situations were directly released, but this time he saw that Hai Mang seemed to be unwilling to release it. "Stop first and take a look on board." "But this is a Chinese ship. What are you afraid of?" "I will take any responsibility." The more Hai Mang thought about it, the more he felt something was wrong. He vaguely saw a person wrapped in a green turban on the boat. You know, as long as you are a Chinese, you are not allowed to have a little green on your head. Even if a leaf falls on your head, you have to go home and wash your hair several times. He guessed that the other side had temporarily changed the Chinese flag. Hearing this, the pirates stopped talking. Boom! Several military speedboats and several modified fishing boats floating around started at the same time and headed towards the transport ship in the distance. The sound of the motor spread far away, and the crew on the transport ship naturally heard it. "Captain, they are coming." The first mate swallowed nervously and subconsciously tightened the gun in his pocket. The captain snorted disdainfully, "What are you afraid of? I can handle this situation. My niece studied abroad in China, and I specially asked her to teach me a few Chinese words." Bang bang, the gunshots rang out, mixed with the various shouts of pirates, and the transport ship slowly stopped. Hai Mang and his group of pirates hooked onto the side of the ship and climbed up using the rope ladder. Seeing the pirates with bullets hanging all over their bodies and axe in their hands, the crew members on the ship shrank their heads in fear. "Who is the captain? Come out and speak." Hai Mang looked around loudly. Although the captain didn't understand what Hai Mang said, he guessed that he was calling him and walked forward. "How, I'm so stupid." Hai Mang pulled the corner of his mouth. "Damn, this obviously loose Chinese is fine. What's the situation with this curry smell that can't even cover the fishy smell? This is not only bullying his ears, but also bullying his nose, isn't it? I'll give you another chance." "Who are you?" Hai Mang directly put the cold muzzle of the gun into the mouth of the captain. "Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all." Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 747. Woo woo woo. The captain whimpered, and because the barrel of the gun was in his mouth, he couldn't say a word. He was so anxious that his hands were shaking. Hai Mang was immediately overwhelmed by the smell of curry. Even AK can't suppress the smell of curry in your mouth. These Indians gathered together are equivalent to a biological weapon bomb. Hai Mang put down the gun in his hand. The captain took a deep breath and said in curry-flavored English, "Don't shoot, we are Baba Sheep people. The whole world knows that Baba Sheep has a good relationship with China, and the autonomous province of Java has a close relationship with China. If he said he was a Baba Sheep person, perhaps these pirates would be afraid to use force and let him get away with it." Hai Mang showed his big yellow teeth and looked at the captain with contempt, and the muzzle of the gun tilted. Bang! A shot directly hit the first mate standing behind the captain. The first mate had an expression of disbelief on his face. He never thought that the other side would actually shoot at him. Before he could take out the gun from his pocket, he felt a pain in his chest and then collapsed to the ground. The gunshot scared the crew. It stands to reason that they have seen a lot of things in these years. especially pirates. As long as they are paid protection fees, ordinary pirates will not entangle, and killing is extremely rare. After all, they are all for money, there is no need to make things bigger. Once someone dies, the scene will be difficult to clean up. I didn't expect that this group of Javanese pirates were not afraid of the Indians behind them. The captain is really scared now. He found that these people are really wild, like uncivilized savages, which makes him feel scared from the bottom of his heart. "Brother, don't shoot, talk about it." The captain didn't pretend anymore and spoke directly in fluent English. "Well, tell me. Where are you from?" Han Mang shook the gun in his hand with a smile. The captain of the ship shuddered at the cold light in Hai Mang's eyes. "Brother, we are 3 people from India, departing from Mumbai, and going to the small Jazoo commercial port. The transport ship is full of food, 10,000 tons of rice, 2,000 tons of wheat." The captain of the ship was afraid of being shot after speaking, so he directly described the cargo on the transport ship in detail. Hai Mang looked at the pirates next to him in surprise. This time, their spy's investigation turned out to be true. Hai Mang intercepted such a large amount of food, and he would make a great contribution in the autonomous province. He pointed and ordered his men to transport the ship and food to the island. "Brother Hai Mang, do you want to?" Hai Mang frowned. "These people are a problem. If he kills them all, he is afraid of causing trouble for the boss above. If he takes them back to the base, he doesn't want to expose the location of the base. So, give them some food and water, and 3 lifeboats." Then Hai Mang came to the captain. "I'll give you a way out, give you 3 lifeboats and some fresh water and food. As for whether you can survive, it depends on luck." After saying that, he threw a compass to the captain. "Ahem, don't say I didn't remind you, you won't be so lucky next time I catch you. And, that direction is the Zaire Sea." What he said was already very clear. He was going to ask these people to go to Zaire Sea. As for whether they could survive in the vast ocean, that was their own business. Thank you," the captain nodded and bowed to thank him. In any case, they survived. Hai Mang and others drove the transport ship away quickly. The captain looked at his ship from a distance unwillingly, and a feeling of regret rose in his heart. At the beginning, he was blinded by his own greed and listened to the nonsense of the Indian government. This time, he lost both the wife and the army. He looked at the dark sea around him again, but his heart kept sinking. This place is still a long way from the Zaire Sea area. If you only rely on human paddling, it will probably take several days. The fresh water and food given by these pirates are definitely not enough. They only hope to meet Zaire's patrol boat on the way. Kyushu has been anxiously waiting for the arrival of the Asin transport ship, and even sent a patrol ship to meet it early. But to their disappointment, they did not receive the transport ship, but they did pick up the crew on the ship. "What? You were robbed by pirates?" Yasuda Shunichi looked at the captain with a sullen face, trying his best to suppress his anger. Apart from anything else, just for these grains, he secretly promised a lot of good things to the Asin government. Unexpectedly, they were robbed by Java pirates again this time. It was really intolerable. He took a deep breath, tried to calm himself down, and used the ultimate method, mental force warfare. The good news now is that the transaction has not been completed. Zaire does not have to bear the responsibility, and maybe this matter can also pull Asin in. Then please contact the Indian government first. After all, this happened on the high seas. The transaction has not been completed yet, and this matter, I'm afraid you still have to coordinate it yourself." The captain heard what Yasuda Shunichi said. His eyes widened. He had never seen such a shameless person. "The contract was negotiated from the beginning, but I didn't expect that Zayashi would default on the debt now. Mr. Yasuda, how can you do this?" The captain was about to say something, but was interrupted by Yasuda Shunichi. You rest first, you can leave by plane tomorrow. After saying that, without waiting for the captain to speak, Yasuda Shunichi left with a sad face. The captain opened his mouth, but in the end he said nothing. It seems that he had to ask the Indian government for compensation. The import of grain in the south was frustrated, and the plan of the northern military government was not ideal. Unlike what Asada Kamichi expected, the immigrants from the coffee country did not donate money to help them through the difficulties. The total amount of grain raised was only 30,000 tons, which was only enough to solve the urgent needs of the northern military government. But this cannot be blamed on the immigrants. After all, the life of the immigrants from the coffee country was not easy. When they heard that they were buying grain on a large scale, the locals desperately raised the price. As of now, the price has doubled compared to when the grain was just bought. Even the more affluent immigrants can't afford such high prices. When the situation was reported to Asada Kamichi, he was also worried. He thought that the food crisis would be alleviated with the help of the immigrants, at least until the summer grain harvest in Honshu this year. But things went against their wishes, and this amount of food might not last until then. Kawashima, is there any way to solve the food crisis now? Asada asked. Now Kawashima has become Mata's strategist. Mr. Mata, how about we open up the grain trade with the Korean country? Kawashima's eyes turned and he gave a bad idea. Are you crazy? You know it's poisonous, but you still import it? Isn't this drinking poison to quench thirst? Mata frowned and scolded. Alas, then there is no other way. It's better to have something to eat than nothing to eat. At least people won't starve to death. Kawashima shook his head regretfully, indicating that he had no other way. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 748. Matin sighed deeply. He had no solution now. The land resources in Zirizi were too poor. Even in the past, it was impossible to feed all the population of Zirizi with the existing land resources. What's going on in the Great Mao? Is there any good news from Piao Saburo? Matin opened his eyes. He had been waiting for good news from Ambassador Piao Saburo in Mao these days. Unfortunately, Putin had not made any statement. This made him feel a little uneasy. If he knew that he had contacted the Great Mao in private, and if the United States knew about it, it would definitely withdraw all the projects and funds that had previously assisted Zirizi. It would make the already dilapidated new government in the north even worse. Not yet, but Ambassador Piao has been communicating with Putin, hoping to find common interests for cooperation between the two sides. Kawashima whispered. It is true that Zirizi has too few chips in his hands now, and Putin is a person who will not show his eagle until he sees the rabbit. Without huge interests, Putin will not rashly turn against Li Qing. Ma Tian was silent for half a quarter of an hour, and gritted his teeth as if he had made a great determination. I will contact Piao Saburo, and I can use the northern four islands for exchange when appropriate. Haha, hasn't Li Qing always been eyeing the northern four islands? Let them fight. Kawashima raised his head suddenly when he heard this. P.S. In this parallel world, the northern four islands are controlled by Xiaorizai. As a Xiaorizai person, I know Xiaorizai's obsession with the northern four islands. The dispute between Xiaorizai and De Mao in recent years is not about Sakhalin Island, but about the ownership of the northern four islands. The northern four islands are close to Hokkaido, but also very close to Sakhalin Island. Although there are four islands, they are rich in resources. In addition to forests, lakes, hot springs, and oil resources, there are also metal mineral resources such as gold, silver, and iron sulfide. These are secondary. What Xiaorizai values most is its military value. The northern four islands have a unique concealment and can achieve thorough communication control. The two largest islands, Kunashir Island and Etarofu Island, have natural deep water ports, which are natural naval warships. In addition, this place is very close to Sakhalin Island. If a heavy army is sent to guard it, it may make the Sakhalin army afraid to act rashly. Mr. Mata, this. Kawashima looked at Mata in astonishment. He didn't expect that Mata actually wanted to trade the 4 northern islands. If this is true, maybe Putin will really be shaken. What is this? This is probably the last chance to impress Putin. Mata shook his head. Now he is afraid that even if he takes out the 4 northern islands, he will not be able to impress Putin. However, he can use this incident to test Putin's attitude towards Sakhalin Island. After all, Sakhalin Island is completely different now. Li Qing is carrying out military construction in Sakhalin Island, and the Army, Navy, and Air Force are all developing rapidly. Even he is a little frightened by the military development of Sakhalin Island, not to mention Putin, who is a tyrant. It is estimated that Putin is also somewhat worried about the military strength of Sakhalin. If this point is considered, there are still common interests between the military government of the northern part of Zaire and the Russians. Besides, if the Russians take over the 4 northern islands, they can restrain the development of Sakhalin to the greatest extent. You must know that Sakhalin will not only face the increasingly weak Zaire, but also the huge fighting nation in the north. Asada's abacus was clanging, and Kawashima next to him frowned slightly. He didn't expect Asada to find another way again. If it is really as he said, Sakhalin will really be controlled by Russia in the future. Mr. Asada, such behavior, I am afraid that the people will not easily accept it, especially the people on the 4 northern islands. I am afraid that it will affect your personal reputation. Should we consider it carefully? Kawashima pretended to be considering for Asada. Kamichi Asada shook his head and patted Kawashima on the shoulder. Kawashima-kun, a few decades ago, there was a pro-Japanese element in China named Wang Wei. The policy he advocated was to save the country in a roundabout way. We can only develop better if we give up the 4 northern islands to form an alliance with Russia and reduce the pressure from Sakhalin. I believe that as long as we become strong again, we can take down Sakhalin, not to mention the 4 northern islands. Although Asada said this, he knew in his heart that this was the only way. If it continued like this, Hokkaido would be eroded by Sakhalin sooner or later. Recently, Sakhalin has begun to test the 4 northern islands many times. Since it can't be kept, it's better to cut off the arm and use this rotten peach to kill 2 warriors. Kawashima stopped talking when he saw that he couldn't persuade Asada. I have persuaded him several times. If I speak again, it may arouse Asada Kamiyaki's suspicion. This old guy is very suspicious. Okay, I will notify Ambassador Piao immediately. No, I will notify Piao myself, Asada said with a smile. He was also afraid that Kawashima couldn't explain it clearly. Kawashima walked out of Asada's office with a serious expression on his face. He wanted to pass the news to the headquarters immediately. If Asada's plan succeeds, the Great Russia and the northern military government of Zaire form a siege chain against Sakhalin Island, which would be terrible. In Great Russia, Kono Saburo received a call from Asada Kamichi and was also shocked by the Prime Minister's decision, but he still asked to meet with the President of Great Russia, Putin. Oh? Are you saying that you want to give us the control of the 4 northern islands? Putin raised his eyebrows. Because the 4 northern islands are still disputed areas, the actual occupation of Zaire has not been recognized by the international community. After all, as a member of the 5 Permanent Committee, De Mao has a veto power. Yes, Your Excellency, President. But it is not for free. We require food to be imported from De Mao at a price lower than the market price, and De Mao cannot refuse under any excuse. Of course, we also allow the Maoist side to establish military bases on the 4 northern islands. In fact, what Saburo said was taking off his pants and farting. Zaire's northern military government promised to build a military base. Even if Zaire disagreed, de Mao would force the establishment. That's it? Emperor Pu looked at the prostitute Saburo with a half-smile. He knew that Zile would definitely not agree to give up control of the 4 northern islands just because of food problems. He knows that Sakhalin has been frequently causing trouble in the 4 northern islands recently, and it seems that he also wanted to drive away tigers and devour wolves during his childhood. Hearing Emperor Pu's question, Saburo Yoshino smiled awkwardly. They all considered it from the perspective of their respective countries. Some things were self-evident. Emperor Pu didn't expect him to answer at first. This kind of thing was obvious because of the lice on the bald man's head. Good. Emperor Pu blurted out. Ah. You agree? The prostitute Saburo didn't expect Emperor Pu to agree so quickly. He thought Emperor Pu would send him back as usual and think about it for a few days. In fact, Emperor Pu had already regretted it. He admitted that he underestimated Li Qing, and in order to win the Kejimajiti, he rashly sold Sakhalin to Li Qing. I originally thought that with the strength of de Mao, Sakhalin Island should be suppressed. Unexpectedly, Li Qing, through the accumulation of the Java Autonomous Province in previous years, allowed Sakhalin Island's military strength to quickly form combat effectiveness. The most important thing is that Li Qing has good relations with China and beautiful country at the same time, which makes him feel vaguely uneasy. Even if Zile doesn't come to ask for help, he will find ways to limit the development of Sakhalin in the future. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 749. People say that it's better to hold grandchildren than sons, so just keep pampering him. Mao Xianmin glared at Li Qing in a reproachful manner. Li Qing took Li Chengzong for a walk in the garden whenever she had time. She felt very happy when she held the little cub with the smell of milk. When she heard Mao Xianmin talking, Li Qing quickly stepped forward and kissed her neck. A scent of milk filled her nose and smelled good instantly. Xianmin, try harder recently. I have a feeling that the 3rd child is coming soon. Li Qing smiled. He was a little addicted to this special milky smell. He was also obsessed with Mao Xianmin these days. Get lost. Chengzong doesn't have enough food now. He has to drink some milk powder to keep him from starving. Do you want to starve your son to death? After saying that, she rolled her eyes and patted Li Qing lightly. It was not long ago that she realized that her man could be so unreliable. He even competed with her son for milk. The two were talking and laughing with their son, but were disturbed by the footsteps behind them. Li Qing looked back and saw that Zhang Dongxiu and others looked a little serious, holding a document in their hands. He knew something must have gone wrong. He handed his son to Mao Xianmin. Dongxiu, what's wrong? Brother, I just received a message from the headquarters. It was sent by Sparrow. Zhang Dongxiu hurriedly handed the document in his hand to Li Qing. Li Qing took the document, and his expression became more and more solemn. He knew that Zairizi would not give up, but he didn't expect that he would want to use the 4 northern islands to exchange for the support of the Big Mao this time. I didn't expect that Zairizi would also have a day to cede land. Li Qing's eyes flashed with a cold light. The temptation of the 4 northern islands, this time, Emperor Putin might not be able to resist. Brother, will Emperor Putin really agree to Zairizi's request? Zhang Dongxiu looked at his silent brother and asked with a frown. Li Qing narrowed his eyes. Dongxiu, don't think too well of these people. If I were Emperor Putin, I would definitely agree to this matter. As soon as he learned the news, he had guessed that Emperor Putin would most likely agree. The military strength of Sakhalin Island has begun to make the Big Mao afraid. If the 4 northern islands can be obtained and a naval base can be established on them, the development of Sakhalin can be restricted to the greatest extent. Even if it is a precautionary measure, Putin will agree. After all, this matter will not cause any loss to him. It is nothing more than the loss of some food and friction in the relationship with Sakhalin. Compared with the benefits brought by the 4 northern islands, these losses can be ignored. Brother, what should we do? John Kandin also came forward and asked in a low voice. If Xiaorizai really wins over De Mao this time, I am afraid that Sakhalin will not have a good life in the future. Li Qing did not speak, walked to the pavilion in the garden, and kept tapping the stone table with his fingers. This time, he thought for a longer time than before, and he did not speak until half an hour later. Fight. This time, it will not work without a real fight. This time is different from the past. If it is just harassment, it will be meaningless. Only by showing off their muscles with real swords and guns, these people will know that they are not soft persimmons. When several people heard this, they all showed excitement on their faces. Who would not want to fight Xiaorizai? Besides, after the split of Zaire, the military strength is no longer comparable to Sakhalin Island. It is too easy to beat the fallen dog at this time. Brother, let me lead the team this time, John Kandin licked his lips and said bloodthirstily. Why? I can do it too, Zhang Dongzhou said unconvinced. Crow raised his head and looked like he was not afraid of being rejected. You all step aside. Uncle Crow is here. What do you want to do? I want to drink the strongest wine, I want to play with the strongest woman in Zaire, I want to ride a horse to Tokyo to enjoy cherry blossoms, I want. Stop, Zaire has the strongest woman, John Kandin interrupted curiously. Crow scratched his head and thought about it. It seems that there are not many strong women among those teachers. They are good at acting reluctantly. This is fine. After all, their acting skills are good. Zhang Dongzhou rolled his eyes, don't talk nonsense. Then he moved closer to his elder brother Li Qing. Brother, when are we going to attack Hokkaido? Li Qing glanced at him. When did I say to attack Hokkaido? What do you mean? Take down the 4 northern islands while Russia has not taken action yet. Li Qing's eyes condensed, looking at the south. Take down the 4 northern islands. Several people looked at each other. They all thought that the elder brother was going to take down Hokkaido this time, but he didn't expect to target the 4 northern islands. In fact, Li Qing made such a decision, and he also had his own considerations. The warships he ordered from China and the United States are still being manufactured, and now is not the best time to launch a full-scale war against Zaire. If a full-scale war is launched at this time, it will prompt the cooperation between the north and south of Zaire to jointly resist Sakhalin Island. If it is just to occupy the 4 northern islands, the southern government of Zaire will only gloat over the disaster. And taking down the 4 northern islands can not only destroy Putin's plan, but also further squeeze the living space of the northern military government. That's why Li Qing decided to take over the 4 northern islands at this time. Brother, if we rashly send troops, I'm afraid we will have no reason to do so. Zhang Dongzhou's eyes turned, and he immediately thought of the missing point. Li Qing nodded and said, think about the reason for the Marco Polo Bridge incident, we will find the same reason, this is called giving someone a taste of their own medicine. Zhang Dongzhou and others' eyes lit up after hearing this, and they nodded at the same time. The morning sea breeze blew, and the fishermen on Etarofu Island began their busy day. They packed up and were about to go out to sea. It looks like it will be a sunny day today. Yes, while the wind and waves are not big, hurry up and go out to sea. Maybe we can meet a school of tuna. Hanako, quickly bring up the fishing nets, we are leaving. The fishermen on each island were smiling, and their quality of life was much better than those in Hokkaido. Relying on this alternating hot and cold sea area, as long as the fishermen on Sakhalin Island don't come to make trouble, they will never lack catches. When the fishing boat was about to leave the port, a huge whistle sounded in the distance, which made them stunned on the spot. What's going on? Is the self-defense force idle? That's right, such a loud whistle will drive away the fish. Some fishermen said dissatisfiedly. Some fishermen picked up their telescopes and looked at the masts of the warships in the distance in confusion. Oh no, it's not the self-defense forces warships, it's those damn Sakhalin demons. Notify the self-defense forces, quickly. What do they want to do? Why are they here? Oh my God, are they here to attack us? The entire dock was in chaos because of the arrival of the Sakhalin Navy. People began to flee, fearing that the shells would fall at the next moment. After receiving the news, the only old warship on Etorofu Island had to go to intercept. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 750. Warning, you have entered our waters, please return immediately. Otherwise, our army will take necessary actions. Warning. The old and dilapidated Japanese warship Keimaru, which was left over from World War II, was heading towards the ships of Sakhalin Island. The soldiers who were shouting had a little trembling in their voices. There were too many warships on the opposite side, with 4 leading destroyers alone, and a large number of frigates behind them. They could also vaguely see cruisers of larger tonnage. And there was only one rusty and obsolete ship on the Japanese side. Captain, do we really have to stand in front of these warships? The Navy soldiers on the Keimaru swallowed nervously. They finally understood the meaning of trying to stop a chariot with a mantis arm. Asshole, we are the elites of the Japanese Empire. Even if the enemy has tens of millions of troops, they can't resist our great Bushido spirit. Shout again, if the other side insists on doing so, then fire. The captain of the Keimaru is a typical Japanese militarist who extremely admires the Japanese devils decades ago. Seeing Sakhalin coming, his first reaction was that he finally had a chance to join the war, and even if he died in battle, he would still be loyal to the emperor. After hearing this, the Navy soldiers on the Keimaru turned pale, and they were not as crazy as the captain. Not to mention anything else, they couldn't even bear the thick gun barrels on the leading destroyer, let alone the missiles. At this time, the Sakhalin Navy was also very excited. Since the last time they attacked the Turks, they had not participated in actual combat. Although there was only one warship this time, at least they could have a taste of it. Listen to my orders. John Candon adjusted the collar of his military uniform and was about to give an order. Wait, Candon, you had enough fun in the Turks last time, it's my turn this time, right? The Crow waved his hand and interrupted John Candon. He had to persuade his elder brother Li Qing to agree to let him follow him, and he was determined to force him this time. John Candon glanced at the Crow beside him. You know nothing, do you know when to enter the range? Do you know when to fire? Stay aside, if you hadn't begged me, I wouldn't let you come. After saying that, he pushed the Crow, causing it to stagger and almost fall. John Candon, don't go too far. Thinking back to the past. The Crow was angry and wanted to step forward to argue. What about thinking back to the past? John Candon glared at the Crow. Humph, don't think I don't know, thinking back to the old woman, did you recommend me? I really didn't expect that you would want to push your brother into the fire pit. I tell you. Although the soldiers next to him had no expression on their faces, if you looked closely, you could see that they were all slightly prying their ears, concentrating on listening to John Candon's gossip. A trace of embarrassment flashed across John Candon's face. He didn't want to lose his reputation in his later years. After all, these new soldiers didn't know the glorious history of the past. In a hurry, he directly extended his middle finger and stabbed the Crow's throat. You Crow didn't expect John Candon to do this, and his physiological reaction made him retch continuously. "John Candon, I'm Leela, are you disgusting?" Crow bent over and felt so disgusted. When he thought of how he often used his middle finger to communicate with Isabella, and thought of John Candon, he couldn't help but retch again. "Damn, I'm not done with you." Crow stood up and was about to kick John Candon. "Let it go to you." "Let it go to you, give me an order." Crow immediately calmed down and glared at John Candon happily. "Damn, don't use your middle finger in the future. Navy officers and soldiers. Warning, warning, you have entered our waters, please return immediately. Otherwise we..." The warnings from the other side continued to come. Crow stood up with a smile on his face. "Everyone listen to my orders, aim at the opposite warship and fire." John Candon's eyes widened, and before he could stop it, he saw the guns on the destroyers, frigates, and cruisers opened at the same time. Bang, bang, bang. The clustered shells whistled towards the Zairi warship. The people on the Kamaru had not reacted yet, and they were washed by the shells. The captain was torn to pieces before he even had time to speak. The entire Kamaru could not even last for a few minutes, and it was already tilted and about to sink to the bottom of the sea. Crow looked at the flames of the opposite warship, the explosions and screams, and laughed. "Cool. Shenten.jpg. You are using anti-aircraft guns to kill mosquitoes. It's just a rubbish warship, and you wasted so many shells." John Candon looked at Crow angrily. He knew that this kid was unreliable, but he didn't expect that he was so unreliable and he would open fire. Crow was stunned and scratched his head. "What's wrong?" "That's how it's played in the movies." John Candon almost choked when he heard this. Get out, get out. The wasted shells will be deducted from your salary." "Tisk stingy, deduct it if you want. How much money can it be?" Crow has never lacked money since he hooked up with the rich woman Isabella. Of course, he never lacked money before that. "The cost price is $1 million US." "What?" Crow's eyes almost popped out when he heard the price. "What the hell? That's the price?" Seeing John Candon's serious look, Crow realized that he was not joking. "No, brother Dan. My monthly pocket money is only tens of thousands of US dollars. Get lost, stop crying poor. We all know you're with a rich woman." The warship began to approach the shore as the two quarreled. The fishermen on Etarofu Island were full of confidence. They believed that the Japanese Navy would definitely be able to drive away the bandits from Sakhalin Island who had crossed the border. "Tisk tisk, our Japanese Navy is really powerful." "That's right, one ship can definitely beat 10 of theirs." "Seeing the back of our warship reminded me of a Chinese saying, the wind is whistling and the Yashui River is cold." "Asshole, this sentence shouldn't be used here. Don't worry about these details, our Bushido spirit is invincible." The fishermen stood at the port and discussed, and most of them were still optimistic about their own country's warships. They still had the impression that Japan was the world's second largest economic power, and believed that with the United States as their father, Sakhalin Island would definitely not dare to take action. Even with so many warships, they didn't dare to fire a single shot, and could only be driven away by their own side in disgrace. In the eyes of the fishermen full of expectation, boom boom boom. The explosions on the Zairi warships continued to sound. The smiles froze on their faces. In just a few seconds, the Zairi warships were covered by gunfire. They could even vaguely see the shells flying out of the Sakhalin warships with smoke. These people were directly shocked by the gunfire of the Sakhalin warships. A few minutes later, the tattered and flaming Zairi warships began to slowly sink to the bottom of the sea. They recovered from their fear and looked at the slowly approaching Sakhalin warships, shouting, "Run, run!" The Zairi people on the dock fled in all directions.